Hey everyone, welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I am your new host, Drastic. I'm from the Drastic Measures Islam channel. We are returning on Easter weekend, so I thought it would be appropriate for us to discuss tonight ex-Muslim atheists who convert to Christianity. Primarily, we'll be looking at the recent conversion of Apostate Prophet, and we'll be watching some of his kind of testimonial videos. Before we get started, I want to thank my immediate predecessors, Moose and Nick, who previously hosted the show for almost 3 years, from November 2021 to 2024. They have retired as regular hosts, but Moose may come back to do some individual midweek shows here and there. So you may hear more from him over the next few months. And of course, they're both welcome to come back on. So thank you guys, and thanks for passing the reins to me. The Gin and Tonic Show has gone through many transitions. I think we've regenerated more times than Doctor Who at this point, but what I'll be doing is I will discuss the plans for the show going forward, but first I want to welcome my co-panelist tonight. He is a previous host of the Gin and Tonic Show, and I like to refer to him as the Godfather since he was there right from the start. It is Mr. Stop Spamming. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, hi. And just to make it clear, I'm only a contributor, okay? To make this 100% clear, I don't want anything else. Please don't come and complain to me. If you don't like something, go to Drastic, not to me.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Well, I was going to address that. So just to let everyone know, we will be getting onto the AP thing shortly. So the plan going forward is we're going to be doing a series of regular weekly shows, and we're going to be returning to the old slot of Friday at 8 p.m. UK time. And what we'll be doing is we plan to do a series of programs going over all 70 major sins of Islam. And we're going to discuss whether they relate to the modern world in terms of morality by kind of what we would consider probably non-believing secular standards. And we're just going to work out by the end of this over a bunch of shows. We're going to go through it all and then kind of rank them up and see how relevant is Islam in terms of morality today. Something that's not been done on the channel before. So I think it will be fun. Alongside that, we'll also be doing some various Dawa video reviews. It'll be part discussion, part video review. And I'll probably throw in a few extra little bits and pieces as we go along. So, excuse me, that is the plan. And that will be done over the next few months. Once that's happened, Stops and I will kind of have a discussion, see whether we will kind of continue. I mean, I do have various other ideas, but we're just going to do this as kind of a test run, see how things go, see how you respond to it, and then we'll take it from there. But we will be around for the next few months. There'll be at least a dozen shows. So the other things I'm going to do just while I'm on this topic is I'll be uploading all the classic episodes right back from the start when they're back in 2011. I initially put these on my own channel, but I'm going to archive them all here. So every possible available episode will be here on this channel where it belongs. And I'll also be creating some playlists so you can access all the old videos because there's like 400 shows already on here. And then it's not exactly user friendly. So I'm going to create some nice year by year playlists. So anyone who wants to go for the archive can enjoy all the fabulous work that Stops and Rob and Nick and Moose and everybody else who's done the show over the years has contributed to. Right, with that kind of long introduction done.
I've got one question.
Another point, Rob, again, previous co-host, which some of you will know, may be joining us later on. We did delay the show a little bit just to sort of give him some time to get ready. He may be coming on to join us to have this discussion, but if he doesn't, myself and Stops will more than be capable of doing it. So, with all that said, hello to everyone in the chat. Hello to April Cox. Hello to Smile. Hello to G25. Stops, you're already getting praise in the chat here. Stops is a legend. Miss him. Well, you don't need to miss him. He's back. He's back for your viewing pleasure. So we're going to turn to tonight's topic now, which is when ex-Muslims go Christian. We're going to be reviewing parts of the video of Apostate Prophet here. There's a couple of videos we've got. One is his kind of testimony just before he actually converted to Christianity officially. He was talking about going to church and stuff. I'm going to go through a few bits and pieces. And then there's another segment from his live stream with David Wood where he talks a bit more about it. We're going to have this video as kind of a backdrop, and we may skip through bits of it because they're not all going to be relevant. But I'm just going to ask Stops what was your initial reaction then when you first found out? Did you have a particular reaction? Were you surprised? Were you shocked? Because I know
Well,
you interviewed him before on the Gin and Tonic show years ago, didn't you? When you first
yeah,
found out.
and
So
and
what's
and I've been in touch a couple of times. The thing is that I well, I was and I still am a little bit skeptic because it's too funny for me to have somebody who was quite assertive in criticizing Islam and was very critical of the Islam God to go and just join another God. You know, it's like you're in a cult, or you're looking at a cult from outside, and then you join a cult. And this for me is strange. So I'm not sure if he's just, taking the mickey or just testing the water to see what reaction of people is going to be. Because I think it opens him up to criticism if he is going to continue to criticize Islam while at the same time worshipping or praying to a different God, which I think is strange.
Yeah, I mean, I so so as we were saying before we started, you almost think this is some kind of potentially a long running kind of gag to kind of prank people. Maybe he's not,
or a test.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do think that Apostate Prophet is genuine. I don't. A lot of people have kind of called him a grifter and this kind of thing, saying he's doing it for the money. I personally don't think that's the case. I think that this is more about trying to find a new community. There was a particular post I remember he left a community post on his channel about, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years ago, something like that. And the reason I remember it is because it really sticks out. He was basically saying to all the kind of secular, atheist, agnostics, progressives, etc. Where's your support been since I've been out? Basically, I've been getting death threats from all the top Dawa guys. I've been taking the slings and arrows and kind of providing a protective shield to other ex-Muslims, which in a way I think is probably true because he is the most prominent ex-Muslim. He has had to deal with the most shit. I think that is reasonable. And his family have had threats and all this, and he's had the likes of Hijab and Ali Dawa constantly after him and all that kind of stuff. So I do have some sympathy for the fact that if he wasn't getting much support from general atheists, kind of going to bat for him, helping him out with live streams and stuff, and then somebody like David Wood, a Christian who is his friend and who has kind of supported him, whatever people think of David Wood, he's obviously been a loyal friend. Now, people can say, oh, well, was he trying to turn him into a Christian from the first place? I have no idea. But I think when somebody shows you that loyalty and then you're kind of surrounded by other people of that same religion, it will have an impact on whether just from a community thing, you're thinking, look, I'm getting all this love and support and loyalty and stuff. Maybe there's something to this. And while that's a very emotional argument, this is personally where I think he's come from, and this is why this has happened. So it's kind of a long explanation, but this is sort of where I think how he's kind of fallen into this. And also I think his wife is also a Christian as well. He might mention that in the video, so we can get to that. So I think that will be an additional kind of influence. So yeah, I don't think he's grifting. I don't think it's a prank. Although, you never know. He might come out next April and just say, actually, it was all a joke. I mean, who the fuck knows? But I think it's more this need for community. And full disclosure, I did actually send an email to Apostate Prophet a few weeks ago because I was interested. I genuinely would have liked him to come on my channel and talk, because I would love to actually sit down and say, look, all these reasons that you used to not believe, how are you tackling that? Because I think for the most part, he's not really addressed it at least so far in the videos that he's been doing. And I'm genuinely curious because I do admire the guy for his previous work. I know he's split his fan base a lot with his kind of strong stance in support of Israel and things like that. And I get people's personal politics get into it, but I still respect what he did, and from my point of view, I'm not sitting here like going to trash AP tonight, sort of cutting down like he's just some Darwa clown. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be critical of some of the stuff that he says in his video, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But Sorry, I think I'm hogging. So, what do you think stops? I mean, if you were to lay a bet, I mean, what would you say? Like 50-50, he's doing this as a prank, or are you more
Well,
convinced?
like I said, there's different possibilities. I'm not necessarily okay. Let me make this very clear. I don't think it's a grift. I don't think he's doing this for money. I don't think he's doing this to harm anybody. If at all, then it's a test for either some other people to see whether we are all gullible enough to believe this, or for himself to see how he feels if he is admitting to being a Christian, when, as you say, he's surrounded by Christians. So maybe it makes him feel more comfortable in his environment, in his social environment, and that is the reason why he's doing that. So, there could be a whole number of different reasons. But as you say, I'm not going to trash him. It's totally up to him. It's just that he has to know that his level of integrity or let's say trust has been impacted by going from non-believer critic to a believer critic, because it's always more difficult to criticize one cult if you are sitting in a cult yourself. So that's basically it.
Yeah, well, I think we can touch more on some of these issues as we go along. But should I maybe like start the video?
Let's go for it. I just want to be clear that there's no animosity. There's no anything. I don't wish him bad things or anything. No, if it is genuine, I don't understand it. Because like I explained to Dressy, that if I go and I apply a set of criteria to a god, to a book, to a fairy tale, I need to be consistent, and then because I can apply the same thing to Christianity, and it's the same ludicrous things that you can say about Christianity, what you can say about Islam.
And with perfect timing, we have former Gin and Tonic show host number 2, Mr. Rob from Speakers Corner UK channel. Welcome back, sir. Great for you to be here. We were just about to start the video, but if you want to chime in.
Hello there.
Good evening, gentlemen. Hey, everybody watching. Yes, it's been a long time. Thought I'd pop in and see how you guys are doing, man. How are you keeping?
If we're behaving here.
Yes, indeed.
We basically we've just had we just started by a brief summary of our initial thoughts on Apostate Prophet, kind of jumping ship from atheism to Christianity, and we were just going to start to play the video. But Rob, did you want to give your initial thoughts when you first found out about AP converting? Do you think it's genuine? Do you think it's you tell us before we start. What's your impression?
Well, I didn't hear about it until you actually told me the other day when we did the other video together. So, because I haven't been following that sort of thing, so I don't know a lot about it. I mean, if he's convinced because he thinks there's good reasons, that would be worth having a discussion. But the little bit that I heard when you guys were talking now is maybe he changed for pragmatic reasons, which again, people can do. But I just don't think that that's going to be a reason for other people to believe. And if you're going to critique people in terms of being like not having good reasons for their beliefs from a logical, justified point of view, then obviously you accepting it as a pragmatic point of view, people are definitely going to be able to point fingers at you and say, hey, look, if this was the case, I'm not saying whether it is or not, but if it were, you changed because you were talking about David Wood and so forth, and he feels like he'd get better support from the Christian community, and that's why he became a Christian. Well, I don't think that's like a good justified reason in terms of that it makes Christianity, more true, but more because he's getting pragmatic value. So I don't know. You guys tell me. You obviously know more about it, so we'll have to see what happens from there, basically. But I would be interested to hear his reasoning, and if it were rational reasoning that wasn't pragmatic, well, then I definitely want to critique that for sure.
Well, as I say, we'll kind of go along. I'm going to play this first video is him just talking about kind of his first experience at church. I'm not necessarily going to do the whole thing, but I think it's worth listening to some of this because it really does highlight for me that the community aspect and this sense of needing to belong seems to be the primary driver. And so it's more the utility factor than anything else. But why should we just play the video and then we can stop at any
Yeah.
time, interject, because there's a few different angles we can come at this, but we've I think we've been keeping people waiting long, so let's hear.
Drastic, there's one point I want to make
Go
because
ahead.
I see questions in the chat here. We are not in the standard gin and tonic mode yet, okay? Because we didn't advertise this, we didn't make this any kind of a advanced show or things like that. So we're not in the standard gin and tonic mode. So today we're going to talk about AP. If you have general questions, like I see here about Adam being the father of mankind, those are the kind of things we will address in the coming weeks. It's an interesting question. Please bear with us that we're not going to answer questions on Islam today, but in future shows, definitely. So it would be great if you can come back next week, and then we're going to be in gin and tonic mode, and then we can answer questions like this.
Yeah, I mean, this is partly, well, this is mostly my fault because I've kind of been dealing with a lot of personal issues at the moment with family and things like that. So I haven't had the best time to prepare, but I just wanted to get started on this and also kind of address this topic while it's still kind of relevant, because I think it is interesting. But yes, by next week, we will be more prepared in the way that Rob is talking about, Stops is talking about, and we will be answering every question you put to us. So, gentlemen, I'm going to play the video and just tell me at any point when you want to stop, and we'll go from here.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. The Apostate Prophet. So I recently went to church, and I have to collect all my thoughts about this now. Technically, I went to church for the first time a month ago, several weeks ago, for the first time with my wife, because she has been going to church. She recently became a Christian again. She was a Christian, then she left Christianity and was an atheist for the longest time. Then she returned to Christianity. It's kind of funny because over all these years since we met, I was always the guy who was interested in religious stuff. I was interested in Christian things. I would sometimes even listen to Christian music, and she would be like, so it's kind of weird that she is the one who then suddenly becomes a Christian.
Right, I'm going to pause it there because I think there's a couple of things. Number one, this is an obvious extra influence here, is the fact that his wife. I mean, if your significant other has already taken that path, I think there's going to be an obvious. I don't want to say it like pressure, but there's going to be a day-to-day influence within your own home. Somebody that you love is already a believer. It will play on you, and particularly if you feel like you're noticing a change and she's being more positive and that kind of thing, you might think there's something to this on an emotional level. It doesn't give any credence to whether Christianity is true or not, but I think you can already see there a major influence within his home, let alone doing live streams with David Wood. Secondly, I think it's also worth noting that Apostate Prophet, and to be fair to him, he was saying this right from the start. I remember the early videos on his channel. He was saying things like, well, I'm not an anti-theist in the sense of I'm not here to critique other religions per se. I'm here to critique Islam. I don't have a problem really with any of the other religions. I respect them all. And he has talked about this constant kind of reading of Christianity. So while I think he was genuinely an atheist, it seems that there was always this pull from religion and perhaps this need, and maybe it's just taken this many years to kind of take over with him. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's a pity that he doesn't really go into anything. He doesn't really say why. He doesn't explain why his wife suddenly decided to change her mind, and he doesn't explain why he did.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It'd be interesting to see if I mean, mind you, she was an ex-Christian as well. So bear in mind, both of these people have religious backgrounds, even though AP's is Islam. They both have this previous belief in God. And I've always thought that as an ex-Christian myself, I left because I thought there was just no good reason to believe this stuff. I felt that there was many inherent contradictions in the idea of a God, and in particular, certain things that comes from Christianity. So even if I could say, okay, the problems I had with Christianity are absent in some ways in other religions, the very core idea for me of God never really made sense once I got to that point. So therefore, there would never be a way back for me, because I have to believe fundamentally it's true. If you leave a religion for moral reasons, particular things within a faith, I think that always leaves you open to potentially going to another one if they're not as prevalent or not as or completely absent, for example. So I again, it comes to me thinking, did he actually leave for what I would consider kind of skeptical, kind of logical reasons, or was it in the end underlying it was just the moral problems he had, things like, you know, Aisha's age of marriage and killing apostates and the other things that are kind of more specific to Islam. It'd be great for him to kind of go into more detail on that, I think. Rob, did you want to kick in here, or shall I play on?
No, you carry on. Yeah, I think you guys have said some good stuff there.
I have a Muslim background. I have nothing to do with Christianity, except that I grew up in a Christian country, Germany, and that I also went to a Christian Catholic kindergarten. But anyway, I went to church for the first time with her, and that was the first time ever that I attended a service on a Sunday. When I went there for the first time, I was a little bit overwhelmed. I didn't really know what to think. It's an Orthodox church, so I witnessed the divine liturgy, as it is called, and I tried just following along with it and observing it and all that. I think after the first...
See, my question there will be, why? Why are you going along with this? What is it that is making you feel that this has any relevance? Again, this is but Rob, I was saying before you joined that I did actually send an email to Apostate Prophet just on the off chance that he might actually want to come and talk directly. I would love to actually put these questions to him, because again, right now it just feels like, well, you have this will, you have this desire to go and do these services. Well, ask yourself why. It doesn't make them any more true, just that you feel the need, you've got some loneliness maybe, or some desire for community, or you're looking for meaning in the words or something. Does it actually make it true or not? And that just seems to be absent from what he's saying.
Yeah, I think maybe he's looking for a community or whatever, and you know, atheism doesn't easily offer that. There's, you know, you need that to be more of a conscious effort with typically with Abrahamic theists and with other organized religions. There is that sort of community, and depending which one it is, you know, you can be welcomed in if you choose to believe it or whatever the case is. So yeah, could well be that, but he certainly hasn't been that particularly clear so far.
Yeah.
Time visiting there, I felt a little bit overwhelmed and I didn't really know what to think. But this last weekend, I went willingly, deliberately to attend and to practice and to participate, to see how it goes, because I felt the will and the need to participate. And technically, I consider this the first time that I actually went to church to participate. And the first...
See, and again, that's interesting to me. It's like, well, okay, so it almost feels like you're saying that you're trying to convince yourself it's true by if I go through the motions, if I kind of do the ritual of it enough, then maybe I can persuade myself. And it's funny because to me, I could see why this would appeal to an ex-Muslim. I remember Apostate Prophet saying in I think it was his conversation with you guys when you first interviewed him years ago when he was starting out. He was saying he was quite fundamentalist. He was quite orthodox. He was, very much into, wouldn't miss a prayer, has to do everything. And maybe particularly as he's gone towards Eastern Orthodox, which I think is more ritual heavy, I think maybe he's needing that. That's all that side of the religion still has a power over him. And maybe he needs that for structure or something like, I don't know, but maybe that part of it's never really left him. Because otherwise, why would you want to participate in these rituals? I can't make sense of that. I don't know what you guys think.
But he says he went deliberately. So it seems that as though he's seeking some kind of a emotional environment which he thinks he can get there. I think this is what it is for me.
Yeah, I think so.
First thing I felt was I felt a warm welcome. Smiles from people, a nod from the priest, a warm welcome from the priest. He saw me when I first visited, so he came to me and said, Welcome back. I'm glad to see you here. There was a close attention by the priest to help those who are new to the church, to help them along with the liturgy. So he would occasionally look at me and to some others who were new and just tell us what we are doing right now, where we are in the liturgy, so we could follow along. And it was quite easy to follow. And I did follow the liturgy, which is an ancient, beautiful liturgy. There are certain things that I recognized in the divine liturgy, the different prayers, the different chants, the different processions. What's very interesting is that I spent much of the last year, 2014, studying Judaism and temple practices and things like that. And I was only familiar with how Jewish temple practices carried over to synagogue practices and how they were.
So I'm just going to pause it there, but this seems to reinforce the point that he was looking at Judaism, which is also potentially, if you're in the Orthodox strand, it's very ritual heavy. So I think this kind of reinforces the idea that this ritual, more than perhaps even whether he believes it or not, seems to be really important to him.
Practiced in synagogues, especially in Orthodox synagogues. But it was very interesting to see how I could see the parallels between temple practices and Jewish practices also in an Orthodox church during the processions, such as bringing out the scripture and then gathering around and reading the scripture, the prayers and the respectful treatment of the scripture, the symbolism throughout the divine liturgy. I felt very touched. And
I just want to have a look at this comment, because I think G25 is right here. Priests paying attention to new attendees. That happens in mosque, which he would talk about. Because I'm sure he's talked about how it is. It's this. There's a certain manipulation going on there when you kind of make someone, you shower them with attention and welcoming and all that kind of thing. And on top of that, he's talking there about respect for the holy book or whatever, respect for the liturgy. Isn't this the same kind of stuff that Muslims talk about when they're talking about the Quran? Oh, I read it and it was so beautiful, and the book is so holy, it's magnificent. Where's the difference here between these two things?
It sounds so fake. He's over the top. How he's like praising all this bullshit, all this nonsense, these rituals. How he is suddenly enamored with all these things is beyond me.
Well, again, for me, it just seems like this is a part of his Islamic background, which he enjoyed while he was a Muslim. I mean, whatever moral points of view that drove him away from it, yeah, okay, that's one thing. But the highly ritualized thing, this is something that I've heard from a lot of ex-Muslims who never go back, but they do. So many talk about the power of the ritual, the power of the prayers and the recitations and everything else having a real grip on you that's outside of any intellectual hold. It's some kind of deep, something that just goes right into you. It's completely emotional. And I think I think on some level he's missing it. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it is fake, but I think he just genuinely missed all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, Rob, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. When I'm listening to him, it sounds like he's cherry picking. Look, there was these people that welcomed me to this thing, and as somebody pointed out in the chat that you highlighted there, that happens elsewhere, particularly with new people that are coming. You want to welcome new people, so you're going to do that. So if part of the reason is, hey, like some Christians treated me well, hey, David Wood was a good friend to me, whatever, that's fine, but that doesn't tell you that Christianity is true. And of course, even if you looked at just that, I think you're cherry picking, right? Because if you go look at the unpleasant Christians, that's not going to, you're not going to want to go to either those churches or hang out with those people. So I think it sounds like what's happening is, he wasn't, for whatever reason, happy being an atheist. I don't think, though, that he had good reason to leave but we haven't heard it yet, but it may be that he doesn't have any good intellectual reason to leave. But he's found this sort of thing, and then what you tend to do there is cherry pick, right? You're looking for the hits and you're ignoring the misses, so to speak. So all the unpleasant Christians or Christianity, parts of Christianity, you're going to ignore that and focus on the other thing. And a lot of Christians do that already. Otherwise, that would be very difficult for them to kind of reconcile, continue being Christians. And I think that's probably what's happening here.
I'm sorry, Rob, I need to agree with you, because the thing is that I always say, if you want a God, if you need a God, then you're going to start looking for a God. But there needs to be a reason why you want this God and what you want it for. What do you want this God to do for you? And this is where most theists are totally unclear. They've never asked themselves this question. But it seems that for some odd reason, he was looking for a God for whatever reason. And it's true. He has not explained it yet.
Yeah, I've just put up this comment from D. I thought this might be coming by the way he was talking when he returned from Israel. He kept saying he felt something there. Yeah, D, I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think I saw you, I think it was you who put a question in one of AP's live streams on this, where you said you'd be interested to see him go up against his old video about why he doesn't believe in God, because he made pretty good points there. If it wasn't you, I apologize, but somebody definitely made that point in one of his chats. And I would love to see that too. I would love to see him go through bit by bit his old video, because it was pretty good. He talked about the idea of how it would be unfair for those who were born in a different part of the world and just through bad luck they're born into the wrong religion. It'd be unfair for why you, oh, it was you, D. Okay, my memory's not fading yet. Ideas about burning in hell for eternity for finite sins. He raised some, very reasonable points in that video from some years ago. I would love to see him now go through point by point, because then we would be able to know, wouldn't we, for sure? All right, is this just emotional, or do you actually have any kind of backup logically, intellectually, and also morally? Because a lot of these are essentially moral questions. Why should you burn in eternity for finite sins? Why is it fair that you're born into the right religion and therefore you get your free pass to heaven kind of thing, compared to others who by accident of birth don't? I mean, these are all really solid questions. So let's hope we do. D, let's hope he does that at some point, because it'd be very interesting.
Humbled and good with repeated invocations or repeated chants of Lord have mercy. The one thing that I was most the one thing that I felt very, very, very deeply was in preparation of the communion, of the Eucharist, the prayer following up to it. There is a part which is about, like the thief, we say, remember me in your kingdom. I think that's how the wording goes. Chanting that out just made me shiver.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of says 1,000 words, doesn't it, really, in that kind of reaction. I mean, this is pure emotion. I mean, I've seen Muslims talk about this when they recite the Quran. To me, this is indistinguishable from that, and it is just as unconvincing as a reason. And I'm not even saying, like, I'm an ex-Christian. There are parts of the Bible which are quite nice, and I'm sure that Muslims feel that way about the Quran. Even ex-Muslims may feel this way about the Quran. But having nice words and even being moved by a particular nice sentiment over, say, a passage talking about love or something, that is a world of fucking difference from, does this mean that the supernatural claims of this book reflect reality? And you have got you've got a galaxy between those two positions, as far as I can see.
Yeah, and I think just highlighting, the one comment there, all of these points are good. At the end of the day, if you keep having certain personal experience, you just can't logic your way out of it. And I think that's probably the thing that I suspect would be, if there were a good reason, then that would probably be the best reason, is this personal experience. The problem with that is you can't justify it to other people. So, when you do that, it's not like the arguments that you previously had as an atheist or as a Muslim suddenly become bad, but you had some seemingly undeniable, experience, or it was very personal to you, whatever the case may be. But then it's very hard to go critiquing other people. You really just have to let the other people, carry on believing, because if you go to them and challenge them intellectually, well, they should, and you should challenge yourself intellectually. So all of the things that you might now critique, let's say in his case, the Muslims, they can well, and I think justifiably, critique him on. And so I think that's the difficulty with, having the person. It's all very well if you're not going to be in the spotlight and you're just going to carry on with your life. But if you're going to carry on doing the sort of critiques he's doing, well, now he's open to the critique. And I think, it's valid to say, well, hang on a moment, you're critiquing us intellectually, but on what intellectual basis did you become a Christian? And I think so far, at least, we haven't heard a reason as to how he could justify that.
Yeah, well, that's a really excellent point, and I think we did touch on that, and certainly Stops and I were kind of talking about that before we came on. Where does that leave you in terms of critiquing Islam? Because, okay, it's somewhat different. I mean, there's very few Christians, say, who would be advocating for slavery today in the way that those who advocate for Sharia and all these Islamist Dawa types, they're quite openly saying, yes, in our society, we would no longer prohibit slavery because the Quran doesn't prohibit slavery. And you won't get that argument from almost any Christian these days. So in terms of real world effects today, sure, there's a difference. But Christians do still have to grapple with the same moral problem that the Bible you believe in, the God you believe in, did allow slavery, at least at one time, even if you want to do some mental gymnastics over, oh, well, Jesus changed it, which I find unconvincing. But you still have to accept that your God of perfect morality once thought that, at the very least, that slavery was right, and then what, changed his mind? That's still a massive intellectual, moral, philosophical problem, even if it doesn't translate into real world harm today. And so if he's going to argue, like he's done a debate on modern day debates with some Muslim guy already from a Christian perspective, how are you going to now argue against slavery? You can't do it the same way that a non-believer can, because we just outright reject it on principle that it's immoral because of its harmful effects. You can't do that if your God allowed it at one point. So it will be interesting seeing how he critiques things going forward, for sure.
And I don't know, I've always had lots of respect for Christianity and Christian practices and Christian prayers and all that, and Christian tradition, biblical stuff. I spent so much of my time over the years studying Bible, whether it be the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, or more recently the New Testament. I read through the Gospels, studied the life of Jesus, and then to find so many parallels and so many references in the liturgy on a Sunday service to everything that I learned was kind of nice. Now, since I'm not a baptized member of the church, I didn't receive communion or anything. I just received a blessing from the priest, which felt very nice. And after the divine liturgy was over, which I think lasted quite a while, up to 2 hours maybe, I don't know. And time just went by. It didn't feel long. I participated and time just went by, and it was beautiful. After
Sorry, I'd had myself muted. I just want to respond to that. Again, 2 hours. Now, to me, this just sounds like 2 hours of, I don't want to say indoctrination, but I mean, I'm struggling to think of another word for it. Yes,
Exactly.
you felt bliss.
Yes.
You felt this lovely feeling, and etc. etc. Yeah, well, you can do that if you take drugs. I mean, you can do that listening to music. You can do that in all sorts of other ways, and time can go by. How does that make Christianity true?
For me, this whole thing is cringe, really.
Well, again, okay. I mean, I'll acknowledge. I do respect AP, and maybe I'm being biased, and maybe that's why I'm pulling my punches a bit. But yeah, it's I don't know. It just seems like he's in crisis of meaning or something, or he's just desperate to have something, some transcendental experience. I mean, take some mushrooms maybe or something. I don't know.
Exactly. I don't know. It's just like having a person who's been brainwashed, and suddenly it's like, I want to go there. I want to feel this. It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't believe that this is the same AP who's telling me these things. That he's saying, he hears this and it's so wonderful, and it's unbelievable.
All right, we'll play on a bit and see what else he's got.
the service, I started making conversation with people there. It's also interesting how in a church, several people recognized me from YouTube. And normally when I go outside, when I go somewhere, some random places, I barely have people recognize me in public, unless I go to some big city. But I go to a church and there are immediately several people recognizing me. I guess in religious circles, it's more likely that people recognize me from YouTube. After the service, I made conversation with people who are just very, very good and pleasant. I feel no pressure at all. I only felt a warm welcome from the priest, who is already familiar with my wife and my family. He came over to me just to have a conversation with me and to see where I am, to see if I have any questions. He made no pressure at all. He just asked me to keep in touch with him. No, actually, you know what? It was me who asked him if I could keep in touch. He just told me that I can ask him whenever there is anything on my mind. He asked me about where I am right now. I told him about everything. I told him I'm kind of interested. I'm on a journey. I'm not entirely sure what I believe at this moment. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing at this moment, but I'm on a journey, and I like where it's going. That's what I said.
But I mean, this is the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't need to be pressured. In that psychological state, when you're already looking for something, you're on this journey, etc. You don't need to be pressured into something. Just that attitude of welcoming and, hey, maybe you can come back some point if you want to. You don't have to, if you don't want to, but I'm always here if you want to call. That's enough when you're in that psychological state. So again, I don't think that says highly of the priest, the fact that he wasn't pressuring you, and he didn't really need to, as far as I can see. It's like you were already kind of there for the taking, if you like.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting had he have come on here, and I think we could have find out the story, and hopefully we'll get to the real reason. At the moment, it sounds like it's more of a pragmatic reason. Hey, it felt good. There were some nice people. But I've heard nothing so far that goes, hey, I'm changing my view because I think this is true, and here's the reasoning for that.
Exactly.
And I think, but if he abandons that, right, if it's not that reason, then, it'd be very hard for him to continue being a critic of Islam, at least, because it's going to be some sort of hypocrisy going on there, I think. But if he came on the show here, we could certainly have that conversation. And I'll be quite open. I'll be, very... what's the word? Clear that I'm going to critique the view and go, I don't think you shouldn't be an atheist. So now you give me the reasons, and I'm going to critique it in front of you live here. Now you'll feel what it's like, when the Muslims were doing it and other people were doing it, etc. And now you'll be on the other end. I'm not doing it harshly, but really just to show you that I think very likely whatever your reasoning is, it's going to be bad, and I can show you why. And so as long as you're not doing it for a rationally justified reason other than pragmatic, okay, you can do that. But so maybe in the future we'll have these conversations. By the way, you guys, there was a guy called King Xerxes. He used to be on Discord. I don't know if any of you knew him. Some of your viewers might know him, etc. But he converted. He used to be a rabid atheist, but very much right-wing atheist, right? So love Trump and all this sort of stuff. So kind of like your right-wing, Christians, let's say. And he converted. And the same thing, right? I didn't get much of a chance to chat to him, but he chatted to some people online. And it's not like suddenly all the arguments for Christianity were suddenly good because he converted, right? He very likely converted for those sort of, maybe right-wing, what one might call right-wing or conservative issues. And, he found some, sanctuary with those sort of people. And so the conversion, but that doesn't make the arguments good, or in fact that he was justified to do it for substantive reasons that shows that Christianity is true. So I think it might be the same here.
Yeah. And actually, it's good you brought that point up, because it is important. Because when you look at what's her name, Iron Hersey Ali did a similar thing last year, didn't she? Where she did this. I'm choosing to believe now in Christianity because I think it's a bulwark against Islam, and it's very much in the kind of culture war thing. And again, she's in a lot of her crowd is evangelical Christians and stuff like this. And I think people do it for these kind of political reasons, depending on their persuasion. And then try to commit, they'll just say, well, I'll sort out the truth later kind of thing. This is my new kind of club. And again, I can understand that to an extent, because I think there are legitimate issues with Islam in the Western world, which is what I talk about, on my regular channel. So I can sort of understand that. But again, it doesn't make Christianity true. And there is a sense that you are compromising your own intellectual honesty by just saying, well, this is a pragmatic alliance. Essentially, this isn't really you know. You can still critique Islam for its troubling aspects in the modern world and what it, potentially could be, things like Sharia coming into the West and that kind of thing. Okay, you can do that without saying, well, now I've got to believe in Christianity. Those two things don't have to go together. Well, they did, I wouldn't have my own channels.
And the thing is, it's not really that relevant. Okay, this is not a big thing for me. Even if you would have converted to Islam, it wouldn't, exactly what you guys are saying, it wouldn't have made it true. It wouldn't have made it more relevant. It wouldn't have done anything. It's just that one person has seen a need just to have a God in his life, and that's it. It's just that I cannot understand it. And this is why I am just simply commenting on it. It's not going to, it's not going to want me to slap AP or anything like that. No, I will just the same way talk to him and the same way sit down and have a beer with him, no problem whatsoever. So it's not that relevant for me as a person without a God belief. Okay, I need to make that very, very sure and very clear that this does not affect me personally. It's just I'm shaking my head because I don't understand it.
And I would agree. Obviously, I'm completely for freedom of believing in your religion. I mean, yes, okay, on a personal level, I think the world would be better off probably long term without this kind of religious belief. But I know, as long as you're not trying to impose it on me, I've no problem with people having their religious beliefs, as long as they're not trying to get special treatment and that kind of thing. Then fine, each their own. But yeah, we're coming at this more from the intellectual level, and is there anything to this? And so far, I would say no. Right, so I spin on a bit. No, okay, I'll go.
Glad to hear it. He said something like, I think you used the right way to describe it. It is a journey. And if you want any help on this journey, feel free to reach out. Like, he didn't jump on me and say, yes, stay in touch, I have all the answers. He basically just offered his help, and it was welcoming, and it was nice. It's kind of weird because after going to church and after letting it sink in a little bit, I don't feel this whole woo-woo, my life is completely changed now, there's something magical happening or anything like that. I don't feel any of these things. I can't sit here and say, oh, this was like the most amazing thing, and this is brilliant, this is magic, and so on. And honestly, I feel glad about that, because I think I'm having a much more natural and good reaction to going to church. I don't feel like magic is overcoming me. I just feel a warmth, a gentle, welcoming warmth and embrace. And it's less intimidating than being overcome with a feeling of magic. I like it. I know over the years people have asked me a lot where I am standing spiritually, religiously, and so on. And I think, thinking back, there was even a time where I said, I don't think I will ever become a Christian, or I don't think I will ever become religious again. I don't think I will ever believe again. A lot has changed over the last year, especially since I went to Israel with David. I don't know what it is, but going to Israel, especially standing before the wall, the Western Wall, that moment that we first went there and stood there, it did something in me. It changed me. Before I went to Israel, I was...
Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
You. Yeah, I mean, what does it mean that you changed you? I think really he's, and I'm speculating, it might be unfair, I don't know, but it sounds like he's in a vulnerable position. The critical thinking faculties that he would have used against, or did use reasonably successfully against Islam, just are not here at the moment, right? There's the feelings, there's emotions, but a sense of evaluating this all with a critical mind, stepping back and go, and what happened here if I was agnostic about all these, and I was asking myself questions that I would ask a Muslim. Let me ask myself those questions now and see what answers I come up with. And if I come up short, which is quite possibly the case, what should I do in that case? And I don't think, at least as what I'm hearing here, that ever happened. He's been swept up in this emotional type of journey here, and the critical thinking has just sort of taken a back seat, it seems to me.
Yeah.
I was cold, atheistic. I think the moment I stood before that wall and pondered, something started moving inside me, and I lost that cold wall inside me. That wall
There you go.
broke that
Just
wall.
stop it there, right? He's now, by my lights, falsely equivocated being an atheist with being cold. And, the three of us are atheists. I know other atheists, and that's not the case. I hope, and I know you guys are, and I'm sure if there's anybody who's listening, we are loving people. We are their family, pets, friends, whatever the case may be. So really, this is baffling to me that he equates being a cold atheist. Maybe he felt that way himself, but I can know for myself, and knowing you guys for some years, that's definitely not the case for us. So this whole, you see what's happening here as well. It's now, I want to put that aside. So what I'm going to do is put it in a box, and I'm going to, wrap that box up in a way that makes it unattractive to me now. Right. And either that's the case for him, or he's suggesting that that's the case for other atheists. Hopefully he's not saying that, but now we can hear what's happening here. It's like confirmation bias, right? I felt something different here. I was cold before, I was dispassionate. Well, you are cold and dispassionate in the sense that when you analyze other people's views and you want to take a critical approach, you're not going to appeal to like emotion, because that's going to cloud your judgment. So I think it's now the story starts to come out.
I agree.
Well, it sounds like he's justifying it to himself, even.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Well, I'd also say this rhetoric, this cold atheistic, and I've heard him talk about, mention this on his live streams as well. What you said, Rob's absolutely right. It's kind of like, I feel this way, therefore I'm going to put it down to not believing in a God. Well, that just doesn't tack, because at the end of the day, you have people who are feeling depressed, feeling isolated, feeling lonely, and they can be of any background, any religion or non-religious. And it's the same. You can be happy, you can be delirious, you can have everything that you're enjoying in life, and you can also be a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, an atheist. There is no real connection. I mean, okay, you might look at studies and say, on average, are you likely to be a bit more happy with this belief or this belief? Okay, but the point is, you have a wide variety of emotional states which don't map on. It's not, you're going to have to do a lot of work to say that the causation is this lack of belief or the presence of a belief. And we do know from Apostate Prophet's kind of own, acknowledgement that he has had, I don't want to say mental health problems necessarily, but he's talked about feeling anxiety and depression and things like that. And I remember during or after a debate, he kind of was almost having a panic attack one time. I can't remember who it was against, but the pressure and the stress, and then maybe there was personal attacks going on. If it was one of these Dawa guys, was really causing him emotional stress. So if you've already got a kind of underlying predisposition to that, if you're, for lack of a better term, like a sort of gentle soul, maybe, then yeah, it seems that's already there. And if you're using religion as a coping mechanism, okay, fine. If that works for you, I'm not gonna be hard on people for that, because you use whatever you can to deal with your problems. But again, we're back to this point. How does this make this true? It's still, at the end of the day, a bunch of supernatural claims which you can't really back up with anything solid. So yeah, it's unconvincing at this point, I would say. Anyway, I'm gonna spin on, guys.
Inside me, and I started moving toward just being agnostic and no longer making assertions about, I know there is no God, and so many experiences, so many good experiences with religious people ever since, with Jewish religious people there, which I explained, and with other Christian religious people since then, have really have changed my mind on things. And I have more and more come to a place where I no longer feel like I can just say, I am an atheist, I know there is no God. And to be fair, I know.
Yeah, well, you don't even have to be in that position. To be fair, I get mixed sort of signals or mixed messages from AP on this, because at various points in a non-consistent timeline, he's referred to himself as an atheist, and then at other times as an agnostic. And as an atheist, you don't have to say, I 100% know there's not a God. You can have strong confidence in that. And there are strong atheists as well as, weak atheists, and the various positions you can take. But even if you are less convinced that there isn't a God, that doesn't. Why suddenly are you then going to move towards Christianity? That's reaching way beyond what I think you can reasonably demonstrate. So this is, I'm still not hearing anything convincing from this.
That it might be possible to live as atheists for other people, but for me, to be very, very honest and very blunt, it wasn't a very pleasant ride. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. In fact, most of the time over the last 2 years or so, I felt this dreadful feeling of emptiness and hopelessness and nothing to look forward to and nothing to live for. And whenever it came creeping up, I was just terrified by it. I have replaced it with prayer. Yes, despite the fact that I only just went to church for the first time to practice, I have been practicing prayers for a month or two, and they started replacing the emptiness.
Right, so for me, this is pure utility at this point. And again, on one level, I'm really not knocking him for it, because if he's genuinely got this crisis of meaning, this depression, etc., doesn't feel like he's got something to live for, and this is a tool, and it's making his personal life better. I really, on many levels, I don't begrudge him that. You know, I can completely understand it works for some people. Some people do meditation and mindfulness. They get into things like Buddhism and things like that. And if it works for you, it works for you. But again, how can you, the way he's describing this, he's describing it as a tool. He's not describing it as a real truth, as far as I don't know what you guys think, but.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And I think if you can, because he's sort of repeating himself, and like you say, this is kind of, it's just coming out of his head. This wasn't sort of prepared or whatever the case is. I mean, I don't know if you can speed it up to 1.25, but it does seem tedious and like, you know, in the moment stuff, which is fine. And I agree. Look, if this is going to give him a better life from a pragmatic point of view, great. But you definitely can't tell anybody that you came to it for rational reasons that shows that Christianity is true. That you can't do. And now to go and critique anybody else, like I say, you're just going to look like a hypocrite, because if you're asking them for good reasons, all they have to do is say, hey, I had a really good feeling about it, makes me feel good. I've done it for pragmatic reasons. You wouldn't have a problem with that, would you, AP? Right? And then he's stuck. That's all they have to do. Right? Now, obviously, they may or may not want to do that, but it's going to be very hard for him to, put forward any sort of intellectual face now if he's going to continue doing any of the stuff online.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just on the thing, I can't actually speed this up because this is actually downloaded as a file. So otherwise,
understood. Okay,
there's I think there's about 4 minutes left in this. I mean, we can, if he does kind of keep repeating, I can skip on to the next part of the video. Sorry, there's a second video which I can skip on to. So maybe we can let it run for another minute or so and then decide then. But there's only a few minutes left of it. But to the point that you're making, I mean, imagine if I came up with the argument that, well, look, I'm an atheist because it feels really good for me to believe that there's no hell, so therefore I've got nothing to worry about when I die. All that's going to happen is I'm just going to go into nothingness, just like I was before I was born. No pain, no suffering, no torture. To me, that's really comforting. Now, there may be atheists who kind of feel like that, and to be honest, the idea of there not being a hell is quite quite a good one for me. But it's not the reason I'm an atheist. It's not, I'm not doing that just because I find it comforting. And if I said that to any believer, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? How's that? That's not a persuasive argument. And they'd be right. The point is why I'm an atheist is for much larger, better reasons than that. And I think this is what this would be the equivalent of an atheist doing it if they did it for that reason. I don't think that AP or any other theist would accept that as a good argument for atheism. Anyways, I'm going to spin on.
With something good and something better. I think, to be very, very honest, for most of the last years, I didn't want to even try out prayers because I kind of wanted to uphold this this proud feeling of being an atheist. I was like, what prayer? What do you mean prayer? Prayer will make me, will take my rationality and reason away. I can't.
Sorry, I just got to stop it. I've got to stop it there because, again, it's almost like it does sound now like he's adopted a typical kind of whether it's Muslim or Christian or whatever theist rhetoric by saying, oh yeah, when I was an atheist, I was this proud, I was doing it for like the intellectual kind of sense of self-satisfaction or smugness or anything. I don't know about you guys, I have never felt that in my entire life about my position on God. I'm not using it to bully other people or feel superior to other people. I say over and over again, I don't think that being an atheist makes me more intelligent than somebody else. I don't think it makes me better than somebody else. It's about the actual arguments. And I don't think that AP really felt that himself, because he's talked many times as an atheist over the years about how he respected Christians and Jews and Hindus and all this kind of thing. And his main problem was just with the, Islam and stuff like that. So this clearly, I don't think he's reflecting honestly his own life here, because he was always very respectful of religious traditions and never thought himself superior. Now suddenly he's become a theist. It's like, oh, I was this proud, arrogant atheist, and I was doing it to to feel intellectually superior. This just feels like he's picked up the theistic script rather than this is any true portrayal of his life.
Yeah, it's a shift somewhere.
Yeah, sorry, Rob. Stops. Were you going to say something? 'Cause I think
No, I just said it's like a shift.
Yeah. No. Sorry, it was a comment here. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. If David Wood was based in India or Tibet, would AP have become either Hindu or Buddhist? Excellent question. And so far, based on what I'm seeing, I would say probably yes. If he was surrounded by, particularly if he was surrounded by, say, a whole community of Hindus or Buddhists who were supporting him on his channel and stuff like that, coming on his live streams to do joint critiques and things like that, would anyone be surprised, based on what he said here, that he wouldn't have become a Hindu or Buddhist? And I think I'd really like, again, not having a dig at AP, but I'd really like him to ask himself these questions, just like, and I'd be curious to hear him, because, I don't think he'd have a good answer to it. Anyways, I'll spin on.
Do that. I eventually decided that it's okay to just put that aside and to just do it. And it feels humbling and fulfilling. For the longest time, I always thought, no, if I want to practice something, if I want to follow something, I have to know 100% in my mind that it is absolutely true. It was actually David who recently helped me overcome that by just mentioning to me that that if you always think that you have to be 100% sure of what lies in front of you, you won't get anywhere. Of course, he said that.
Yeah, but this is a complete straw man of an honest atheist position, because most atheists would say, I imagine including ourselves, we might say that a particular God, like that's portrayed in Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever, we might say, based on the things that you say about your God and the contradictions of religion, yes, I am convinced beyond any doubt that your particular God is wrong. But most of us probably wouldn't say that we are 100% convinced that no God anywhere exists. There probably are some real hardcore kind of atheists. For me, I'm just saying it seems extremely, extremely unlikely. So no one's saying like you have to believe it 100%. So this feels like a really dishonest portrayal of how most atheists think about these things. I don't know what you think. I mean,
I don't know why. How can he say he needs to know 100% that it's true? How the hell did he test it?
Well, yeah, and I mean, this is good. This is almost like reverse Pascal's wager now, because it's kind of like, well, if you're going to throw yourself into a new religion and you're not 100% true, then you're not 100% sure. Then you're maybe causing some problems for yourself, because what happens if the next religion down the street was a true one and you threw yourself into this one, and God's going to put you in hell for it? So I mean, it's a really bad argument. I just. Yeah. All right, I'll spin on because there's not much of this left.
All of this in a much more profound way, but it helped. So despite the fact that David Wood is a terrible influence on me, just kidding, I can learn a lot from him. And I appreciate his friendship because of that, and because he's fun, among many other reasons. I will stay in touch with a monk that I met. I will stay in touch with the priest. I will continue on my path. I am less arrogant, more open to humility for most, exploring the path that I am right now.
So I've got to say, sorry, I just have to stop it there. If you were arrogant before, please, again, with the best will in the world, AP, don't put that on the rest of us as atheists. Don't sort of say this is because you're an atheist, because That's not the that's not the fault of taking a position that God does not exist. That does not mean that you need to become arrogant. You may have been arrogant before, and he never came across as arrogant to me, ever. So again, this just feels like post hoc reasoning than any genuine kind of representation of what AP was like. I always felt he came across as a pretty nice guy for the most part. He got a harder edge as he went along, which is not surprising dealing with all the Dawa clowns. But this idea he was some really arrogant person, I just don't think it's true. And to sort of put that down to atheism is ridiculous.
At this point,
I don't like his vocabulary. I don't like the word that he's using at the moment. This is crazy. This is not the same person.
What do you mean specifically there?
Listen to the last 3 or 4 sentences that he said before you stopped. And it's so humbling, and it makes me wonder about. I don't know. This is like he's in a sermon of sorts.
Yeah, it does have that character to it. I would agree. Right, let me do this last bit, and then we'll move on.
Entirely sure what will happen and where I will go and what I will do, but I would say the only reason that I don't outright come out and say I am a Christian now is that I'm waiting for a final confirmation. I think Islam took a heavy toll on me, and I know I have been wearing crosses and also saying that I practice or that I pray and things like that. But I have still not officially said that I am a Christian. But oddly enough, I also don't want to say at this point that I'm an agnostic anymore. I'm just on the doorstep, and I will let everyone know what happens next. So stay tuned and wait for the next episode. Yeah, that's it. Thank you all for listening.
All right, so yeah, I think that's it. Let's just put Harry's comment up here. His morals are sound. I think I also kind of understand his motives, politics, career as an influencer, his family, and the amount of death threats the guys had. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I am genuinely sympathetic to AP. If for no other reason, then he really has been the shield that has protected so many other ex-Muslims, and he has had to put up with unimaginable shit, no doubt. You know, it's probably, and that must be terrible for your family and things like that in particular. So yeah, I do have complete sympathy there. And regardless of this conversion, it's not like I suddenly, I dislike him. As Harry put in another comment, he's a very likable guy. He is a nice guy. And I know a lot of people have a problem with his political stance on Israel and stuff like that. But, he has done a lot of great work in challenging these Dawa guys. But, in terms of intellectually justifying, if he's going to come out and sort of say, well, this is why I think Christianity is true. Not that he has to personally justify it to anyone, but if he's going to start arguing from the point of view of a Christian, I would think he'd have to do better than this, especially if he's going to come up against an atheist in a debate. I think he would be in massive trouble. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Rob will probably remember that we had an ex-Muslim, Thunderous, and with him the same thing happened. That he left Islam and he joined us on the show as an atheist, and then he felt this void, and suddenly he became a Christian, and he became a fundamentalist Christian and was actually swearing at us.
Remind me, Stops. Who was that again?
James. Thunderous.
Thunderous One. Do you remember Thunderous? He used to co-host with you.
Yeah, but he used to be on the show as a Christian with us, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was always a Christian by the time he was on the show. I'm sure he was.
No. He was a proud atheist at some stage when he joined, because he just left Islam, and then suddenly he became more and more engulfed in Christianity.
Well, from what I remember, I remember him saying that he was at one point an atheist, but from all the time I remember him being on the show, he was coming from he wouldn't use the word Christian. He would say from a Bible-believing perspective.
Hang on, you're right. This was exactly the point, that he was, but not an outspoken one. Sorry, I got it wrong. He was a Christian, but a very subdued one, and then it changed his attitude. His attitude changed, and then he became a fundamentalist Christian. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is,
okay.
That's another great case in point, because again, Thunderous, and I know he worked with you guys for a good 2-3 years or whatever it was, and I think he made some valuable contributions. But yeah, unfortunately, at some point I suggested to Nick and Moose maybe to have him on again, you know, just to see how he was doing. And then I found him on some of these Christian channels where he was, I mean, his rhetoric against atheists had just gone like really hardcore, you know,
Exactly.
we're all degenerates and destroying the world and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, yeah, probably best not to go there. Which is a shame, because on a personal level, I actually quite like the guy. You know, we used to have chats in Discord and stuff, and I thought it was, you know,
all he needs to do is justify all of these claims. I stopped doing this. I mean, I think it's very hard to do intellectually now, to critique a different worldview on a moral basis, unless they already believe what you believe, or you can get them to reevaluate their view. But if, like a Muslim, or in this case a Christian, just bites the bullet on slavery, let's say, or whatever the case is, or as far as I can tell, at least, all we can do is end up grandstanding and telling them why they're wrong from our perspective. But if they're in a group where their society or their group accept that, you know, that's a good thing, it's very hard to penetrate through that from an intellectual basis. And I used to try to do that. And when they did it to me, it was like they were just making a lot of noise. And then I wondered to myself, well, am I doing that to them? And so far I've not, and maybe you guys can help me out or in the future or whatever, but even, you know, some of my very smart colleagues on Clubhouse haven't been able to do it in a sufficiently good way where you can critique somebody else from your point of view. They don't buy into it, and somehow you can show them that they're wrong. I just think at that point I think it's a lost cause at this. I remain open though if somebody can show me how to do that. So it's all very well he's saying that about atheists, but come on and critique us. And all we're going to hear from him is, I think you're wrong because the Bible says so, because my interpretation of the Bible. You, me, and, you know, all the three of us are going to go, well, who cares? You just give him your opinion. You give him your fictional deity's opinion. Why would I care about any of this, right? All you're doing now is your rhetoric about why you think we're wrong from your perspective. Why would I care about that? So I don't know that he will have anything meaningful to say
I mean,
on the subject. I don't remember that. So, I mean, maybe it happened towards the end, or maybe after we'd sort of left or getting towards the end. But obviously, from what you guys are saying, that's originally happened to him. But I think it's very hard for him to come and offer a critique other than, you know, start shouting or throwing in toys or whatever the case is. Because the intellectual critique, I think, will just fall completely flat.
I think you can do things like, I mean, in some respect, you're talking sort of like an internal critique. You could maybe go in and point out like the contradictions over positions and slavery. I mean, like, for example, with Muslims, they'll on the one hand make claims like, well, Islam came to end slavery. Now, that's obvious bullshit, and it's so provable just based on what the Quran says and what the Hadith literature says and what happened throughout Islamic history. So I think it's worth debunking those kind of claims, because it is almost a schizophrenic position that the Dawa guys will take on slavery. They'll, on the one hand, say, well, you know, slavery didn't exist in Islam. Then they'll say, oh, but slaves were treated so well that they like being slaves. Then they'll say, well, actually, Muhammad ended slavery. I mean, they just take one contradictory position after another. So I think you can do useful work highlighting that. But whether you'll truly persuade them out of it, I think if you're a real hardcore fundamentalist believer, almost certainly not. But I think it's more for the audience, for those Muslims who are more on the fence about these things, to hear, to see the holes in those arguments, I still think are useful. The hardcore fundamentalists are unlikely to change, but it's those people who are wavering. I think it's important to reinforce the fact that these are untenable positions, by various metrics. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough sell for a lot of people. I'm going to just skip forward a bit and just have a look at this second video. We may not do much of this because we've already done, it's an hour and 15 minutes. So this next one it's AP and David Wood doing a joint live stream. I can't remember whose channel it was on. To be honest, there's a lot of bullshit in it, but there were a couple of segments, so I'll play it and then I'll see if I can skip to the couple of bits that I wanted to address. So people in the audience, bear with me. This is going to be a little bit bumpy, this part of while I try and find the good bits. But I'm just going to try now.
With them and so on, they think, oh, so in other words,
2 times.
And especially when they can't imagine someone disagreeing with them like looking at the same evidence and disagreeing with them and so on. They think, oh, so in other words, like same thing happens all the time. So with Nabil, it was, oh,
sorry, I think I missed the start of this, but he's basically talking about people not believing that Apostate Prophet has really converted, and yeah, I'm just going to play on.
you converted because someone paid you, or you were always a Christian and you just pretended to be a Muslim because you had this big scam and so on, and you did it for a woman, you did it for this, you did it for that, you did it to rebel against your parents and your culture and stuff. Whereas like anyone who's there and actually knows him knows how insanely idiotic all that stuff is. But it's like they can't get their mind around someone going, after taking a closer look at the case for Muhammad and the Quran, I reject it. I think it's stupid.
I mean, there is something of a fair point there, because that's what Muslims will, and I mean, Christians to a less extent, but particularly Muslims do love doing this thing of, oh, you were never really a Muslim. And there may be some people out there saying, oh, well, AP was never really an atheist. Now, I don't believe that. I think he didn't have a God belief. Whether it was on good enough foundations or not, I don't know, or whether he was always just going to be potentially moved from that position by emotional things. I don't know. But yeah, I am of the opinion that I don't think this is a grift. I don't think that this is fake. I just think it's done for extremely poor reasoning. But I do think that he genuinely sees himself as Christian. I know, Stops, you said this might just be one big joke, but I guess we'll find out in the long run. But
or a test.
Or a test. Life is a test, remember, after all. So, yeah.
Who knows?
I think it's a reasonable point to say that you know, just because someone has moved away from a position that you share, you shouldn't automatically just think, oh, well, they're just bullshitting. Anyway, let me just carry on.
But for me, it's very easy, because look, if you need a God, then you will just find a God because you need it for some reason. I don't understand the reason. But the thing is, there is no good reason to believe that gods exist. But if you need a God, you will find one. And even if it's just what Rob was saying, I 100% agree with, that this is just emotions, it's feelings. He wants this nice fuzzy feeling. I mean, sure, I want to get high and then I also feel nice and fuzzy, warm and comfortable. Sure, that's great. And for some people, this belief in a God is exactly that. You feel at home, you feel sort of confirmed in everything that you're doing, because the people around you are not going to criticize you. They're gonna say, yes, brother, well done, and what you're saying is beautiful, wonderful, and we're going to give you all the warmth and welcome that you need. And this is what people are after. So it's not a good reason to believe that gods exist, but it's feelings, it's emotional, it's very strong in people.
Yeah.
They can't get their minds around that. So there has to be some alternative, some ulterior motive for why you're doing this. And likewise, you've got it with Muslims and with at least some atheists now, where they can't imagine the Muslims can't imagine someone leaving Islam without some ulterior motive. It has to be something like you're getting paid. There has to be something else. It can't just be, I looked into the arguments and this stuff, it's wrong. It doesn't work. These arguments are bogus. Can't be that. But atheists as well, they can't imagine, like, once you're a based atheist and skeptical of religion, they can't imagine anyone going, you know what, this there's something wrong about this, and I'm going in a different direction. There has to be something else.
Well, if there is something, then share what it is. Hey, this is the argument convinced me, or whatever the case is, so we can have a look at that. Right. So I think that people do convert, but I don't think from my perspective that they did so for good reasons. And if they want to present the reasons, then we can have a look at that. Right. So I'm not going to say, I think probably, like I said, the best reason for somebody to convert is through personal experience that they find undeniable, but that's not going to be good for anybody else. But I get that it would be good for them. But I haven't heard anything from AP from an intellectual point of view as to why he's no longer an atheist. And whenever I hear an atheist has become, Muslim or Christian, the first thing I ask is, well, what changed your mind? I want to know what convinced them, right? And see what their reasoning process is. Now, maybe it's possible that they've got some incredibly good reasoning. And you know what? Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That sounds entirely reasonable to me. I haven't come across one yet. I'm open-minded that it might happen. but we haven't heard from AP, what his intellectual reason is.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not on this clip, but I do remember this live stream, and there was a point in it where he said that one of his objections as an atheist was this whole thing of where's the justice in being able to, most people not being born in a region where the so-called true religion is, so therefore by accident of birth they're going to hell most likely. And he said, "Oh well, I spoke to the Eastern Orthodox priest guy, and he gave me a good reason, or I was satisfied with his answer that question. He never actually said what it was, and to be honest, I don't watch his live streams really that much. I've only really kind of tuned in for this stuff because I was kind of interested. If he has said so since, I would really love to know what that is. So if he's elaborated on this so far, that'd be great to hear. But he said he got a reason, but wouldn't say what it is, and I kind of find that interesting. That why not tell us and see if it's a good reason or not? Because it's an important question. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be catching this for a long time.
That's what they do. But yeah, so that last year, I was kind of the funny thing is my wife was observing this the whole time, because just around the same time, after certain events happened, she'd returned to her Christian faith after over a decade of just atheism, and chose to go with orthodoxy, with Eastern Orthodox.
This is another thing. How do you do that? Again, is this like pick a mix Christianity or something? It's really weird. Do you just toss roll a six-sided die and think, all right, if I roll a 1 or a 2, it'll be Protestantism. 3 or a 4, it will be Catholicism. 5, 6, Eastern Orthodox. I mean, either you're persuaded or you're not. How is it? And they do. Okay, you could argue these differences might be superficial to an extent, but there obviously are clear theological differences between the traditions. How is it just like, oh yeah, well, I had some personal things happen to me, I moved back to Christianity, and I went, oh, okay, I'll do Eastern Orthodox. I mean, this does not sound like a real search for truth to me. I don't know.
No. What do you call these centers where you buy building materials?
Where you do what?
Buy building materials.
Where you buy building
and tools and screws and bolts and nuts and all that stuff.
I mean, like a hardware shop or something.
Well, it's like a hardware shop, but it's like a supermarket where you have like 3 floors of full of stuff. Anyway, so
okay.
This is what it seems like, or it sounds like to me, that you go into one of these centers and then you pick from the various segments from the different sort of departments whatever you need to build your personal project that you like, which is then, I don't know what you call Orthodox or what you call Islam or what you call Christian or whatever you want to call it, but you are taking the elements that you want to put together the project that you like. And that's it. And then you just call it something. So it's your personal preference.
I think Christopher Hitchens had a phrase with something like, was it pick a mix religion or cafeteria religion or something like that?
Or something like, yeah, like you go to the menu and you put like in Starbucks.
You pick what tastes good, throw the rest away. Yeah, it's that kind of
Starbucks is a better analogy. So I'll use Starbucks the next time. So you go and you decide what you want in that coffee, and then you decide what it is that you like. And then this is then what you defend. And then you say, yeah, I like the taste.
Yeah, somebody said he did a Russell Brand. Let's not get onto Russell Brand. I mean, to be fair, Russell Brand was always a kind of spiritual person, if you like. So I mean, his
but he was also flip-flopping, wasn't he?
He was what?
Flip-flopping.
I don't know. He went into New Age stuff, I think, and then there was some allegations against him, and suddenly became a Christian. I don't know.
I thought he was. He went into esoteric, and then I don't know. Okay, doesn't matter.
Anyways, yeah, let's play a little bit more to see if there's anything worthwhile here.
Orthodox Christianity, and while she was doing that, to me, in my mind, the thing that I would be least likely to go toward was Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Like I thought, even if I somehow ended up becoming a Christian, I would probably become a Catholic. So
why though? There's never any explanation for any of this. It's just.
But he went to the Eastern Orthodox Church, and they said, if you join us, we will make you an archbishop. And he went to the Catholics and said, will you up that and make me the Pope? And they said, no, fine. Then I will destroy you.
Or I thought I would go to something else. I don't know, some Protestant movement or something like that. I don't know. But I was practicing Jewish things, actually. I got myself, I went really into practicing Judaism.
I think he's done this bit. Let me just skip on a bit, see if there's anything else here.
The strap thing, or something.
I'm just saying, could it be like alligator skin?
Okay.
It was actually doing prayers in the mornings. But the thing is, I never lost my respect that I had for those practices and for the tradition and for Judaism and Jews and all that.
Sorry,
anything
there
within me, all
was
the respect and all that is always there. But once I tried engaging in Christian prayer, I actually felt like something happened, and I felt like I'm actually doing something when I engage in prayer, and for the first time.
Yeah, but what? I mean, seriously, this is some vague fucking talk. I mean, something happening, something. I mean, what? Can you be any way specific about what he's talking about? I mean, this does. Again, I'm not trying to trash the guy, but this just sounds like gibberish to me. It really does. So there was one section that I wanted to find. I'll keep playing it, but if I can't find it, maybe we can wrap up. But just give it another minute.
Time in 10 years or so, I had genuinely engaged in praying to God and asking for guidance and all that. There is a thing, like, I have to admit certain aspects here, certain things here, which are that I know that atheism might work out for lots of people. Every human is different.
Again, I think this is the bit, again, because it's this weird language. I mean, okay, fair enough. He's saying it might work out. So he's not sort of, say, trashing atheists in general, whatever, fine. But what do you mean work out? That is not why you should have a belief in God or not. Surely the point is whether it is true or not, whether you are convinced by the argument. It's not like, oh, well, atheism works out for me, so I'm going to keep being an atheist. I mean, what is it? It's not like you're picking a holiday destination or something. This kind of rhetoric is really maddening. Sorry, I'll spin it on a bit.
I know that it might work out for lots of people. There are lots of people out there who might be like, oh, yeah, I'm an atheist. I'm totally cool, totally fine and all that. I don't really, I would say for myself, honestly, it wasn't necessarily always the best way of living.
What the fuck does that mean? Again, I mean, Rob and Subs, this is worth asking. Again, I'm not sure your backgrounds, but like I was raised a Christian, so do I really think I can honestly say that my ways of living didn't change that much? Okay, it wasn't a particularly like hardcore Christian upbringing, so it's fairly relaxed, but my ways of living didn't change. My perspective on what reality was likely to be, you know, what was true about reality or not changed. But fundamentally, I mean, there wasn't a big change in my life. I don't know. I mean, Rob, I think did you start out as a Christian? I can't remember. I think you might have said you were a Christian at one point.
Yeah, I was for a period of time. Yeah.
I mean, did you
I wasn't
find
born
some
that way, but
massive
yeah.
difference in the way that you were living, or was it just
No, I actually did it for Pascal's wager reasons, kind of at the time. But I was much younger, like late teens or whatever, so I obviously wasn't thinking particularly well, but it was more an emotional thing at the time.
Yeah, but it's like as if you're picking atheism to be a way of life. I mean, this is just really, I don't understand the way he talks about it, but all right, let me spin on.
But see, especially over the last year, I was kind of on a path of self-destruction and depression and complete nihilism and all that, and I was trying not to make that not to make it very public and all that.
Right, the nihilism thing, I think this is where I wanted to particularly address, because you so often get these two things equated, atheism and nihilism. Now, if you want to talk about a specific kind of philosophical position, okay, you can say technically nihilism, philosophically, nihilism is saying that there is no ultimate purpose to life. There's no cosmic purpose, no divine purpose. If you're going to use that philosophical definition of nihilism, okay, you can equate it to atheism. But for day-to-day living, atheists are not really nihilists. We just happen to have come up with our own reasons. What's important to us? Family, enjoyment, love, helping people, doing whatever, pursuing your own happiness. That becomes your purpose. And as far as I'm concerned, for me personally, I find that just great. I mean, and I don't think that somebody who believes in a God has more purpose than me. they might believe it's more purpose, but if anything, you're saying, well, this is God's purpose fundamentally, a God which you can't demonstrate. So this equating nihilism with atheism from like a day-to-day point of view, as if like atheist, it's an extension of the you've got no morality kind of position, which is just such bullshit in my opinion.
Yeah. We just had a very interesting stream yesterday, Thursday, sorry, where we talked about the purpose of life. And this is like a 3.5-hour stream where we talked only about this, where we, being Atheism TV, went and said, well, what is our purpose? What do we see as our purpose? And how does that compare to Christianity, to Islam, to blah, blah, blah? And that's what we were talking about all the time. And we had a Christian who came in there and he explained it to us. And he couldn't. He just said, look, my purpose is to believe. And what do you believe? Well, that Jesus is Lord and we will be somehow taken to paradise and blah, blah, blah. Well, I said, but how do you know that this is true? And that's where he left it. He couldn't argue his point. There is no argument. There is nothing. It is just the belief. It is the faith. And that's all he has. And I was very sure, because I said, I have a purpose. I'm not a nihilist. Absolutely not. I have a purpose, which is, for me, the most beautiful thing that you can have is an orgasm. You cannot kill somebody. You can't make war. You can't do anything negative if you have like a consensual orgasm. So I said, well, there you go. That is my purpose in life, to cause as many consensual orgasms as possible. So I have a purpose because it's the best thing. Can you show me something that is better than an orgasm? No, you can't. Well, there you go. I have a purpose. I mean, it's tongue in cheek, of course. But this was just to make my point, and that's it.
There you go, folks. You know that the Gin and Tonic show is back when we highlight the importance of a consensual orgasm. You know that
absolutely, yeah.
You know the quality. Yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying. If you need the God as your purpose, as your way of getting through, dealing with the troubles that come along with life,
emotional orgasm.
I don't have a problem with that, really. I mean, I don't. I'd like to see humanity get to a stage where it's not needed to do that kind of thing. But I don't begrudge people at the end of the day. But
don't tell me I can't.
Yeah, and this equation, I just find it irritating that he's gone into this typical kind of theist rhetoric of equating atheism with just having no purpose in your life and just you're just nihilist and you're bitter and you've got no you just nothing means anything, nothing matters to you. Yeah, there is a shit ton of things that matter to me. There is a lot of things that mean to me. Again,
you're like a piece of meat hanging at the butchery.
Well, I'm doing, I regularly, every Ramadan, I do videos about all the scams that these Dawa guys are doing, how they're ripping people off. How comes if I've got no morality, I'm not doing that? And I'm calling them out. And I even have a fair number of Muslims actually, well, they'll say, I know they don't like my channel. They don't like me because I'm criticizing Islam, but they at least say, yeah, look, on this point, we agree with you. And there was even one guy who said, look, I'd rather have an honest atheist than a scamming Dawa, a Muslim guy. So again, atheism is not equated with immorality or no meaning or no purpose. It means that, I mean, I tell you what, it reminds me of there's a scene in the film The Matrix. There's a scene in it where Neo, Keanu Reeves' character is saying, I've got. He's sort of left the Matrix and he's like, oh, I've got all these memories of my life, and I used to eat in that restaurant, but I realize now none of that was real. What does that mean? And the Trinity, the female character, turns to her and says, well, the Matrix can't tell you who you are. And this is kind of how I feel it like this. It's like, just because I don't believe in a God, that just means that God doesn't tell me what my purpose is now. It means I've got to decide that for myself. And to me, that's quite liberating. I know that can be daunting for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that the meaning I come up with is any less valuable. Anyway, that feels like I've been really fucking ranting a lot now. So
hang on. No, you made a fantastic point at the moment, because, and this is a point that I need to concede, it is much easier to be a Christian than it is to be an atheist, because you just relinquish control and you say, well, it's not me anyway, so it's God deciding anything and everything, And I don't need to think about where does the universe come from, or where did life start, or is my morality false or right, or too subjective or whatever. You just say, no, God did it. It's exactly this. And this is what Rob, I think, was pointing to as well. It's much easier to be a Christian or well, not a Muslim because there's too many rituals there. But to be a Christian, I think, is much easier than to be an atheist.
Well, I think in some sense you're offloading the responsibility somewhat.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And that's not to say, for any theists listening, I'm not, I understand that, yes, you are moral beings in terms of how you act your life, and you are going to make moral decisions, and they're not always going to be based on the Bible, because you've got other or the Quran, because you do have other influences in your life and stuff like that. So, but I think, fundamentally, if you're just saying, well, God decides what's moral or not, yeah, you have abdicated a certain amount of responsibility, because you're not really thinking about it, are you? You're not deciding, does this make sense to me based on my own kind of analysis of how life works and the reality of experience. And I think, yeah, it takes more effort, I think, if you don't have that underlying book to tell you what to do.
And look at the Quran. The Quran tells you that you don't want to fight, but you have to. And if you kill someone, it's not you doing it, it's me, Allah. Just blame me, not you. You're doing it for me, so I don't blame you for it. So that's sick.
All right, I'm gonna play one more little bit. Well, I'm just gonna let this play a little bit longer, because I think that was the main bit I wanted to see. But I'll play it for another 30 seconds or so, see if anything else comes up, and if not, I think I'll probably wrap up. So let me just do this.
But those close to me know how bad it was, and how I actually was in a place of thinking, what the hell is the point, and all that. So it's actually kind of funny that over the last month I changed a lot and have become much more positive and much more hopeful, and overall at peace. And this happened with picking up certain practices. And the thing is, when I started up picking,
yeah, I think you're just going to carry on like this, but just to address that one more time. Okay, yeah, and if you had picked up, a mindfulness meditation thing, and that worked for you, then would you then be a Christian? Would you need to say that you believe in God or whatever? It just seems it's pure utility. His arguments are coming from, and it's a shame, because I really, if he does have any intellectual basis behind it, if he does really think that there are truth claims there, and he can justify them, I'd be interested to hear them. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there, guys, because we've been running over an hour and a half now, and this was supposed to be a short episode just to get the show back and welcome everybody on board again. So I'll end it there. Stops, do you want to give a sort of summary about what we've spoken tonight? Is there anything you want to add?
No, I think we've said everything. Come on. I cannot understand personally how somebody can go and believe in a God without any possibility of having a good reason to do so, and without being able to show that there's a concept of truth in it. That's it. This is, for me, it's a matter of integrity. For me, it's very important that whatever I believe is true. I don't see any reason to have faith. And what I see, what I understand, what I accept is that there are people who need a God in their life because it makes life easier for them. Yeah.
Rob, how about you, mate? Do you want to kind of give any concluding thoughts?
I think we've said a lot, but just to conclude, I think he hasn't given a intellectual reason for why he's left atheism. He's certainly provided pragmatic reasons. He's given a lot about his feelings, etc. And I hope he reflects on that. And, if perhaps you can get him onto the gin and tonic at some point, then we can have a discussion. And look, if he's just going to bite the bullet and say, I didn't have intellectual reasons, I had pragmatic reasons, great. Just come out and say that. And it'll be interesting to see how he wants to proceed going forward. If he does claim to have intellectual reasons, well, then I think we can probably scrutinize those.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think the odds of him coming on here are not good. But yeah, I mean, the offer is open on the 1,000,000-to-1 shot that he actually sees this video. Yeah, I mean, and again, it wouldn't be a I'd certainly be looking to have a kind of nice conversation in terms of, you know, we're not going to be swearing at you or anything like that or calling you names. It would just be a reasonable chat, but obviously we would push back on any claims that he makes. And yeah, I think that's it. I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, it's been great to have you guys on, and it's been great to bring the Gin and Tonic show back. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. It's really nice to see everyone in the chat. Hopefully, we'll see some of the more of the old people come back as they see this video available, and we should be back.
I'm not old.
Well, we should be back next Friday at 8 o'clock. Certainly myself and Stocks will. Rob, I know you said you'll drop in if and when you
Yes,
can.
I'll be more of a
Bit
a surprise guest rather than a regular. But wish you guys all success, and obviously we've got a group that we chat in, so we'll keep up to date, and let's see where it goes from here. Thanks so much. It's been always a pleasure with you guys. Until next time.
Yeah. So thanks everyone, and welcome back for the Gin and Tonic show.